Us in order, and I'll have Representative LaMontagne do the call order for the meeting.
Well, we have to have a pledge of allegiance.
Oh, you know what? It's not on here, so the pledge of allegiance is after the call order, but whatever. I'll do the pledge of allegiance first.
I'll record.
There we go. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We remain standing for a moment's silence.
Okay. All right, with that, I will go back to the top and have Representative LaMontagne call the roll.
Bailey,
Here.
Burnham. Here. DeRoy. Here. Or, Harrington,
Here.
Corrigan,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Howland,
Here.
Kaczynski,
Here.
LaMontagne is here, Levesque, not there yet, Malone, Potenza. Here. Schmidt,
Here.
Southworth,
Here.
and Wall. Here.
All right, we have a forum, so we can keep going. Representative,
Technically, don't we have to start with the calling the meeting?
all right,
I think you have to read, the part at the beginning that says we're on, the notice of meeting.
Oh, the notice of meeting.
Sorry to interrupt, but
I think everybody has. I'm just gonna, again, the meeting has been noticed. It's like I'm calling an order that Friday, May 16th, Strafford County Executive Meeting. As I say, it was properly noticed, and I will move us on to the meat of the meeting, which is the approval of the March 7th, 2025 meeting. Are there any substantive changes that need to be made? Janet, of course, is a professional in the minutes.
Move approval.
Do I have a second? Moved by Representative Schmidt, second by Representative Wall. We can definitely do a voice vote on that. All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye. It's unanimous. We move on. That moves us to the approval of the second round of the tax anticipatory note borrowing up to $17,980,000 for 2025. So why don't, for that, I bring up somebody to speak to it?
and it's this sheet here.
Commission received a communication from our deputy treasurer that the funds are insignificant in the county's treasury to pay our bills for the remaining portion of the year. This is all boilerplate. This is stuff you folks have already approved. This is just going through the formalities. We're only allowed to borrow money every 6 months based on federal arbitrage laws.
So this lets us keep the lights on.
Correct.
That's the basic
That's
thing.
right.
of the approval that we already- the budget that we already approved.
Yeah.
So I will, entertain a motion to approve the second round of anticipation notes borrowing up to $17,980,000 for 2025. Moved by Representative Wall. Do I have a second? Seconded by Representative Howard. Discussion. Representative Potenza.
Where's the amount of interest that's paid on that?
We don't know until we go out to bid, and we can't go out to bid till you approve it. So we estimated based on the first round.
Okay, so and what's that?
Diane's right behind me. She'll tell you in a second.
I didn't bring, I brought the first quarter budget, but I have the first quarter budget. Do we have the original budget in there?
No,
No.
we'll get that for you in a moment.
Just give me a guesstimate.
It was like 3%.
It was about, yeah, it was over
3.2 somewhere.
3.132 somewhere along there.
3% of what? 3% of
Of the amount we borrowed.
would be the 17,980,000.
In the first round.
For the remaining 6 months approximately.
Right.
I'm representing Harrington. You had a question?
Yeah, I'm trying to just some explain this. I'm reading this letter. This is the first one I've seen. It's obviously it's dated today. It says on November 22nd, delegation and executive committee approved borrowing anticipated tax not to exceed $24 million to meet the anticipated expenditures for 2025. based on preliminary budget estimates. The final budget that was approved with the amount of that. Therefore, I'm recommending that we borrow 17,000. So was this 17 million? So I'm trying to figure out, it was approved borrowing in anticipation of taxes not to exceed 24 million. Is this 17 million part of the 24 million?
No, sir.
No.
It's for the
Great
next
question.
6 months. The 24 million is for the first 6 months.
Okay,
The amount we're asking for you for today is.
this is for the second half of the year.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And what did we borrow? So what did we actually borrow for the first half of the year? It says not to exceed 24 million.
The 24
It
million.
was 24.
Yes, sir.
And what was it last year for the second half of the year?
The only difference is we borrowed the total amount to be raised by taxes. We borrowed in 2 sessions.
Right,
So it would be 4% less, because that was the amount of the tax increase.
okay.
So it's like the total tax, let me just, for clarification, so the total taxation was gonna be 41,995,980. We borrowed the first 24 million, and now we're borrowing the second to bring it up to the total of 41 million.
Yeah, that's correct. We are, one of the reasons why the interest is so low, of course, is guaranteed by the tax collection.
So we don't have any tax revenue coming in until the very end of the year?
December 17th.
December 7th.
So just to piggyback on your question then, so when we close out the final budget, you will come up with what we actually, what fund balance and all that is there at the end?
That's correct.
That's correct. So we'll know, so we're like only at the midpoint of the, actual expenditure.
Well, you're at the
Or quarter point.
quarter point.
Yeah, so we'll know down the road exactly what the final tally is. Next question, yes.
So how much money do you have in the undesignated fund balance right now?
None.
None.
In fact, it's in deficit.
In deficit.
So,
And that is why?
Because we don't.
Because we didn't raise the revenue last year that we expected.
from jail,
Partially from the nursing home, partially from the jail.
Jail.
court rental,
No, that's on budget. If you go back to the documents that we sent you, earlier in the year, and we can resend them if you'd like, if it's easier for you. It was the year-end stuff we sent you
I'm sure I got it.
in February. It would have been somewhere around the 10th or so of February. It shows all that information.
Okay, I'm sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Is this typical, just being a newbie for the first year, is this typical every year that you have to go out for this tax because we're not getting the revenue in
Well,
a timely manner, or we're not getting the revenue because
no, it's because we don't collect our taxes till the end of the year.
until the
It's
end
not
of the year?
about,
You operate on borrowed money for a full year.
It's a flow.
Yeah,
It's a flip. So that's costing the taxpayers $2 million or $1 million, $1 million in interest on these, on.
the other option is, of course, to build the cities and towns, right from the start.
Yeah.
And that would probably, in a lot of cases, force them to go out and borrow to pay us. Because it depends on, the determination's been made year after year by the delegations to have one entity borrow, which is us, as opposed to having a number of entities borrow in which to pay us. Because there's a certain fee, for borrowing costs. So it's better to be spent once and not having 6 or 8. Now, there might be some entities that would have the equity to pay us up front, so to speak. But a lot of the towns particularly would not have it, would not have an adequate fund balance to do that. So they'd have to go out and borrow to pay
So
us.
that's not something that we can investigate to see if that we could minimize the amount.
We can investigate it. We have a number of times over the years. But we could, the chairman could form a committee or use the revenue committee to call the revenue committee back to investigate that if that's the direction of the chair.
I mean, just to, follow up on your point, I mean, the municipalities are going through the exact same thing, honestly. So it's like, what you really want, to their point, is the most efficient way so that not everybody is borrowing money. So in this case, the county is kind of the fall guy for the municipality. It's probably all a wash, but if you so desired us to, the revenue people to look at it, we certainly can.
I think it might be something that would be a good idea for us to at least look at it. You know,
Well,
it's not gonna
somebody
cost
wants-
us anything.
And you need a statutory change.
Statutory.
Yeah, you need a statutory change, because statutorily, it says that the county will collect taxes on December 17th from the municipalities. So you need a statutory change to say we could collect it twice. Now, there's some sense in that, I just got a notice from my mortgage company that they're paying Summersworth, the first round of taxes.
Yeah.
And again,
But someone's
by
gonna invest
statute,
that money, someone's going to invest that money, Doe and all the municipalities are investing that money in their cash flow. So you'll affect their cash flow if we collect it earlier. Okay, it's just,
it might help ours,
it's gonna help us, but it's not gonna help
but
them.
it's not gonna help them.
And it wouldn't be less, is that correct? It would not be
Generally,
less to have
I don't-
them do it.
Historically,
Right,
historically, it's cheaper for the county to borrow the money.
that's my
historically,
point. Thank you.
than it is for each municipality to try to do it on its own. Historic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Dover and Somersworth, but I do know about Rochester, and we are sitting on millions of dollars in an unassigned fund balance.
Mhm.
So all of that money, which, I say is taxpayer funded, some of it, of course, is from landfill or whatever you want to call it, fees. Still, all of that money, and I think the last amount that I heard that was in there is like 38 million. When we're then, huh?
Around 30 years.
Okay, in any case, if Dover has that and Somersworth has that, why is the county footing the bill? Go pull the money out of your unassigned fund balance and take care of it that way. So we're not then piggybacking on the taxpayers, another $1 million in interest. It's ridiculous.
I'm happy if you do a statutory change
Yeah, it's a
to
law
allow us
change.
to collect it twice,
Yeah.
but it has to be a statutory change.
So it is a complicated thing. I think if there is interest in the legislative bodies, certainly we can set up a small group to work on this. As the administrator mentioned, you are legislators, and this would theoretically involve legislative change. So I am more than willing to do that. There's a small bipartisan group that wants to get together and work on this. Whoever is the head of your Republican caucus, if we have a small number of you and a small number of Democrats, especially working under the revenue section, I think, because Representative Southworth is on Ways and Means, we can set you off and get you work. So after this meeting, I can sit down and talk with you and we'll set something up.
Awesome.
I think that would be good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And
All right.
we're talking about a bill for 2026.
Yes.
Correct.
So we don't have a big rush, just really getting a base started,
Right.
what we want.
Yeah.
I had another comment, but the only thing I'd say about this is, I think the taxpayer is going to pay the interest either way.
That's correct.
Yeah, but I think you're looking at the most efficient mechanism. So again, it's something that you guys can work on the details.
Certainly, I'd suggest that we communicate with the cities and towns and ask them what their situation would be if we went to twice a year collection.
For sure.
And that might give a good basis for the committee to make some decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what the committee's gonna need to do.
Right.
They're gonna need to figure out how to make it the most efficient mechanism possible, which clearly means talking to, and it's not just Rochester and
it's 13.
bigger cities. There's some small towns like Representative Walls over here. So again, we'll set you guys off and you can work on that.
The
Yes.
towns collect basically twice a year, so they get it, I guess, by July and then in December, so.
Yeah.
They're not,
And it's not such a hit in December either.
loading it up a lot.
So it was mentioned that the revenues were down or weren't drained the undesignated fund balance. I was just wondering, I thought we had an increase in the charge for prisoners, say.
Yeah,
I guess I was wondering is, even if there was an increase, is it actually covering costs or making?
Can I hold you off 1 second on that question? Because that is gonna probably deal more with when we get down to the review of the first quarter of the 2025 fiscal budget. This one, what we're talking about is actually, we have on the table right now a motion to do the net borrowing of 17.8, which is just to keep the lights on. And then subsequently now have or going to form a subcommittee to work on an efficient mechanism potentially. So I think I would prefer to call the motion, which I think was, as I remember, was made and seconded.
Yeah, we're in discussion and
Yeah,
I
we're
just
still in
wanted to ask him a question.
Yeah,
When you're
Representative Southwood.
Was the extended cost for the prisoner in the hospital part of the deficit?
No, because it started after January. It
thank you.
started January 19th.
So that'll be part of this next batch.
Yeah, and I put it in the cover memo, because I wanted to make everybody aware. You know, there was some accusations that the county didn't do a good job at making everybody aware of things in regards to the nursing home. So I wanted to go out of my way or out of our way to mention in the cover memo that significant financial dilemma that nobody could have expected to happen. That and the situation at the nursing home.
Thank you.
We don't budget for emergencies. You can't. And these are two almost the hospital one for the inmate happened once in the last 40 years.
Could you explain why that happened?
Let's
Yeah.
get this motion done, please.
Yeah.
I do have a question
Okay.
regarding the interest. So if the budget is the 41.9,
Right.
and the interest is 1.3, and we're borrowing basically for the 41.9, how do we allocate the 1.3?
That's in the budget.
It's in the budget. There's a line item in the budget for interest.
Okay, within the 41.9,
Yes, ma'am.
but we're borrowing 41.9.
There is the interest, the amount of interest is in the total $70+ million budget.
Expenses.
It's in the expenses. So it's already in there. What I'm saying is we're guaranteeing it to the lender that we're collecting that much in taxes. So that's a guaranteed revenue. And they know they're gonna get their money back.
So it is in the expenditure.
Yes, ma'am.
You're just kind of making a guesstimate because you don't know exactly what the interest rate is.
That's correct.
That's correct.
We won't know until commissioners approved it this morning. We're asking you to approve it now, then we go out for a public sale.
Right.
And obviously take the best interest that is given to us.
All right. Of course.
I know you want to do a vote. I just want to put this on the record. So if, I don't know if I'm going to be part of this little group or not. She's, my counterpart here is better with finances than I am, but whatever we are doing in a bipartisan fashion, I just want to make it crystal clear that we have got to really have solutions for our taxpayers. We are heading into, we are already there, but we're going to be in such a dark place. And people are losing their homes. So this is ridiculous. Everybody has to tighten their belt. And the county needs to be very sensitive to this. So I'm not joining any other committees or any other meetings unless we're actually going to get some stuff done in a bipartisan way for the taxpayers. Because money doesn't grow on trees, and all of this stuff, all these services and all these things, we can't pay for. Because I'm telling you right now, it's going to come to that point. We all know here, we're all legislators, okay? We all know what's going on with this budget. And this budget is ridiculous. We don't have the money. Does everybody look at the fiscal note that came in from the state? We're $200 million down from 2024 right now. So that's what I'm saying. We need to be really looking at this.
So I mean, my hope is that anytime I form a committee, I'm not just trying to form another meeting, fill time. So, really it's up, that's on us. I mean, again, what's in here is we're legislators. So if it requires a legislative change, this means someone's going to have to come up with something as well as digging into this. So I think everybody is sensitive here to tax impacts. I mean, I don't think I've done a budget where I haven't heard how hard it is for people. So spending our money efficiently is clearly our goal. So I think, again, the committee, I'm not looking to waste people's time. If I put you on a committee, I want you to do some work, because the idea is to come up with some output that we get something done. So I applaud what you're saying, because that's the goal. Again, I will need some volunteers to do work that really have an expertise in revenue and finance. And so I know we have under Representative Southworth, who's on Ways and Means, is very knowledgeable. We'll pick a few people that are very knowledgeable from your side. My thought process is not to give you a deadline, but you need to have something ready to roll. I would say we do another one, like what is our next, the fourth quarter at least,
It would be in November when we ask you to borrow for next year.
So by November, let's just say when we meet again, after I set you guys up, that you'll have a report that you can get back that says something this. Representative LaMontagne?
Yeah, if anyone wants to change statute, though, you're gonna have to get it filed in September.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
It's gonna be before that,
So-
but I don't think realistic, but
It's really gonna be up to,
someone wants to do that.
yeah, it's really up to the people. Representative Morgan?
Yeah, my question is just to clarify when they put this bid out, we work through banks that specialize in it, but who's buying the debt and is the interest rate you're gonna pay gonna be similar to what they've been willing to pay in the past, like?
Well, we hope that's our plan.
Yes, because that's-
That's our plan, and that's our hope, and it goes out everywhere. It goes out nationwide, so we'll get bids from New York. Usually it's kind of northeast based, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. So it could be from anywhere. I think lately, not the last time, but historically, the bid's been awarded to a New Hampshire bank. It just depends who's the best interest rate. There's no services to be, to enter into the judgment of how to borrow the money. It's purely interest rate.
Donovan?
Yep.
And does this include municipalities, either from New Hampshire or the states who have undesignated fund balances? Is that one of the vehicles?
You're confusing.
I think we're confusing the two things.
Yes, I know.
One is there was a discussion about the ability for the cities and towns to pay us more frequently, which would mean that they would need to adjust their budgets to pay us, because they collect taxes twice a year. So the logical thing is for them to pay us twice a year. What I don't know is how they calculate the use of their first round of borrowing. It could have something to do with long-term debt that they need to pay in that first quarter, or a variety. I certainly have heard publicized by many of the state reps about Rochester's fund balance. I am not, I guess a little ashamed to say I'm not familiar with Somersworth, even though I live there. And I don't know Dover's, and I certainly don't know the municipality. So my humble recommendation would be whatever committee you put together, one of the first things to do is to write to the cities and towns to find out what impact a earlier collection and then a subsequent collection would have on their operation.
For sure. I mean, having spent like 6 years on the Durham Town Council, and I think we have other people who've been representative, it's really complex, and you're gonna have to deal with every municipality in Strafford County when you do this. So it is a big job, but again, it's a worthwhile job to start on.
Yes, I wanted to just piggyback on that I think it's really important right now, if you're not paying attention closely with the finances, the budget's starting up again in your towns, and I don't know about cities as well, but I do know that Milton is short.
Yeah.
People cannot pay their taxes, and they are not paying their taxes. This is huge, over $1 million, which is a lot for a small town. And although I would think that it would be nice to break it up into two payments for the county, right now, it wouldn't be able to happen. So I think that we really do need to question our representatives, our elected officials in town, but also small towns are hurting. And I think that if you're not aware and checking in, we need to do that, because the everybody is just at a squeeze and they're leaving. They're leaving and I don't, they're not even actually leaving. There's a lot of houses just not paying their taxes. How's that? And that's a harder method to make people move out is if they're staying there and not paying taxes. So they're not even selling.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the points that was brought to our attention in previous years when we studied this, that it's a real burden on the towns particularly. But please, we are happy to support clerically and whatever you instruct us to do. So yes, there's a lot of work by the committee, but the physical part of it, the writing of the letters, that kind of stuff, the county's happy to support in that. So that would not be we would do what the committee tells us to do.
Thank you. So I think we have at least a foundation started, and it's to say, before we walk out of this room, I will talk with Representative Southworth and get the ball and rolling at least. Because again, it's a complicated issue to work on. So with that, I will ask my clerk to call, I think obviously with this kind of money, it's a roll call vote.
Right.
Bailey,
Nay.
Brenham,
No.
DeRoy,
No.
Harrington,
Yes.
Oregon,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Holland,
Yes.
Kaczynski,
Yes.
Lamontaine. Yes. Clerk votes yes. Tenza,
No.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Southward,
Yes.
Wall,
Yes.
Motion passes 10-4. All right, that moves us on to number 6 on the agenda, which everybody was dying to get to, which is the review and the approval of the first quarter 2025 budget report. We got an initial letter that came out with a lot of rosy, positive news. So I guess the best way is probably to bring up the administrative. You want to talk about the first quarter budget, or the best way to talk about it?
Sure. I mean, the first quarter budget on its face, appears to be on target. But there is problems brewing that's going to be facing us in the second quarter. And they're substantial. And one of them is a medical situation that we've never had. Well, we've had it once before in 40 years with an inmate at the House of Correction, who's our inmate, meaning that he's not a federal inmate or a border of any kind. He's a Strafford County inmate. And I'll recognize, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, the superintendent, and I've also brought the head of medical from the House of Correction, that they could present the details.
So, good morning. I appreciate the time to address this issue. We have had an individual in the Department of Corrections that went into the hospital on January 19th. The individual went in for a significant health concern that our medical staff identified. And as a result of identifying that concern, we found that it was not, in fact, that diagnosis. However, they had something exceptionally severe, which required them to be moved. And forgive me for the vagueness. I'm trying to protect the individual's privacy. They were sent from Wentworth Douglas down to Mass General Hospital, where they underwent open heart surgery, and their health issues were addressed, but it required additional work to be done. During that time, we moved the individual back to Wentworth Douglas, in which case their health deteriorated again, and the same exact thing happened. It was identified that the entry of the virus was identified, and that was addressed. They had another procedure that was conducted, and the individual was down in Mass General until about a couple weeks ago, and now they're up here in Wentworth Douglas. The individual was sentenced. They were convicted of some pretty serious charges: strangulation, first-degree assault. And so they were
And aggravated felonious.
aggravated felonious sexual assault as well.
Great.
So they were convicted of a crime, but they had not yet been sentenced for that crime. So typically what happens is a conviction happens. There's a 4 to 5 week process where there's a pre-sentence investigation to determine what any facts and circumstances related to the conviction should be taken into consideration by the presiding judge before they drop the gavel and say what the sentence is. So they were in this small window where they were convicted, but they were yet to be sentenced. Now, anybody who's familiar with RSAs know that there is a provision that allows for us to release an individual so that they would be able to not be an inmate in our facility for medical reasons. However, that is something that can be exercised by the superintendent, but this was not the case for us to do this. This individual was convicted of serious crimes. And so that's why that did not happen. As a result of this, it requires constant supervision by the sheriff's department to provide security. Thus, why the sheriff had to be sitting on the individual. That's commuting back and forth to Wentworth Douglas. We've made requests after requests after requests to have them transferred from from Mass General to Wentworth Douglas. We've even tried to see if we could have them brought to Portsmouth Regional Hospital as a method to try to more easily alleviate some of those concerns. But the individual was not healthy enough for transport. The individual actually died down in Mass General, and they were revived. And through a series of pretty elaborate medical services, they were brought back to health, and it was established that they were healthy enough for transport. Now, this is one outlier that Mr. Bauer had talked about. In addition to that, we've had numerous people that have to go out to the hospital for an elevated level of care. Now, that has nothing to say about our medical staff and the competency of our medical staff. It has everything to do with the fact that we are dealing with a unhealthy population, and the effects of IV drug use or the intensity of the drugs that are in fact accessible are contributing to that elevated level of care that exceeds what we can do in our facility. And I think it's important to note that by sending somebody out and getting them additional help on the front end is a massive step in us protecting ourselves over a longer period of time when someone might try to make an allegation that I have not provided the proper health care while they were incarcerated. And I just handed a lawsuit to Janet where we've been sued for the initial request of $70 million because they feel as though they weren't provided the appropriate level of health care while they were incarcerated with us. I can tell you that it's not accurate, but it doesn't stop somebody from asking those questions. And so when we talk about sending people out to the hospital, it's done after extensive review by our medical staff, by our medical director, who's an MD, to determine whether or not that individual needs to go out. But keep in mind that every time an individual goes out, it requires 2 deputies to go out and be with that individual. And that requires overtime. That's outside of the typical time in which individuals have to work. So I think that's a brief synopsis of those individuals that we send out.
I'll do Representative Tenz and then Representative.
So I just have a question about the insurance in a sense, like, so is this prisoner, is that Medicaid that's paying for it? Who's paying for these medical bills?
Fortunately, a number of months ago, one of our employees learned about a program that allowed us to enroll our inmates and their families in coverage. And we exercised that, and it appears from everything we know that we haven't gotten a medical bill since January when he went in.
You will.
Well,
we used to get medical bills?
Yes.
Oh, yes, but this would be, I have every confidence that his medical bill alone is well in excess of $2 million. And so we've changed his plan a little bit. We're paying $33 a month because it's obviously in our county's best financial interest if we can avoid that $2 million payment. So what we're really talking about, and the payment that's not, obviously not included in the medical coverage, is the cost of security for the 2 deputies, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Is that when he's down at Mass General?
Well, fortunately, for a little bit of time, he was down at Mass General. We got help from Plymouth County, who did us a favor, and because when he first went down to Mass General, we didn't believe that he was going to be there that long, nor did we understand the extent of his health situation. So Plymouth, out of courtesy, covered him for 2 or 3 weeks down there until they realized, and we realized, that he was going to be down there for a much longer period of time. And, they said, uncle, we've helped you as much as we can. You guys need to take over.
So that was like out of the kindness of their heart, or?
That's correct, kindness of their heart.
So they're not gonna like bill us for that, okay?
It's what they call a professional.
Is that accurate, Sharon?
Yeah, that's my understanding, is a professional courtesy from Plymouth. And however that, right now, we're covering them ourselves. Is that correct, Sharon?
Yes. So yes, and I think it probably has to do with your interstate compact agreements between corrections officers. But we were able to, my lieutenant to reach out to them. And they had people that were willing to come in, and then yes, this second time, their staffing issues were such that they were unable to help. And we did encourage, because we appreciated it so much, and even if they had billed us, it would have saved us a considerable amount of money. So we encouraged them to enter into discussions with us about a payment, but their staffing was such that they were able to do it for free for that duration, and then we're unable to the next time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a real quick follow-up. So let's say, for example, these aren't, New Hampshire citizens. Let's just say it's, let's say it's an ICE detainee or anything that has to do with that. The federal government would pay for every bit of that, whether it be medical care, all of that kind of stuff, correct?
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have to be paying even a premium for any, okay.
That's included in the contract that we hold with INS. So that's something that is an impact platform that we submit based on where they go and when they go for consults. We get approval. Anything on an emergent basis is like automatically approved.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just want to.
And we don't pay, in fact, we don't even see a bill. The hospital bills ICE or the marshals directly.
Okay, I just want to make sure of that.
Add one piece to that, and then my office would be billing the federal agency for the deputies if those were federal medical situations.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so, for example, if we're using our sheriffs or deputies for that, then the federal government is then reimbursing her department.
That's correct.
Okay.
It comes in as a general fund revenue. It doesn't actually reimburse her department.
I get it. I get it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're not footing the bill for
I
that.
just want to represent you.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, actually, starting with, you said that this person hadn't been sentenced yet. So I'm assuming if he had been sentenced because of the severity of the crime, he'd be off to state prison.
He'd be
That's
gone.
correct.
So he's just kind of in limbo land right now.
That's correct. This truly is a unicorn situation where it's sentenced but not, I'm sorry,
Guilty, but not sentenced.
convicted
Yeah.
but not sentenced.
And not trying to second guess people, but a person's dying and then he's being brought back to life. He's had open heart surgery. He's in critical shape. What threat does he pose to people? I don't get this. I mean, handcuff him to a bed and leave him there and what's he gonna do? Spit at somebody?
It's not that simple with the hospital. I mean, the hospital requires security. And
Even if he's comatose.
well, I mean, believe it or not, there's times when he's up and about, getting his IVs and those kinds of things. But there's not we don't have the ability, well, the sheriff can perhaps better answer that.
So yes, he's not quite comatose most of the time. And he does have the ability to engage with the hospital staff, and we are protecting him from that, or protecting them from that. He also is people could bring him items from outside. We
That's
have to
true.
make sure the visitors aren't there.
That's right.
We've also
You
had
can
to
plan escape,
intervene.
you can plan escape.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
escape, visitation,
There's all
also, the ability to get on the phone to people he should not be calling exactly for escape reasons or to bring him contraband. So unfortunately, his mental status has been such that he has been able to pose a problem. Otherwise, the county attorney and, other avenues would have the ability to furlough him.
So when we first learned about the seriousness of his case, of his medical situation, we met with the commissioners, obviously privately, and the county attorney, to run over our options, I guess is the best way to put it. And the consensus, the clear consensus from everybody is based on what he was accused of, not accused of, what he was convicted of. And that we just couldn't take the chance of leaving him unsupervised for all those reasons that the sheriff said.
Now, this in-between status, if you will, where he's been convicted but not sentenced, can that go on for another 6 months or 8 months as long as he's sick? Or is there some time when it can simply be brought to court and said, we're gonna sentence you to 10 years and then becomes the state's responsibility?
Emily can best answer
First, I
that.
can answer that. This case is originated from my office. So his sentencing is originally scheduled for 90 days out. However, he needs to be able to participate in his sentencing as his constitutional right. He can't do that if he's been so sick that he hasn't been able to discuss the situation with attorneys. His sentencing is currently scheduled for June. I was just trying to get the exact date for you. But again, if he is in such a position where he hasn't been able to engage with his attorneys and discuss the sentencing, they'll move it again. And the court will keep doing that, not us. You know, I could insist upon a sentencing
Right,
date,
it's not
but the
gonna
court is going to delay that if he hasn't had the opportunity to discuss
It
it.
appears there's an end in sight.
Maybe he'll die.
I'm not going there. It appears there's an end in sight in terms of his return to the House of Correction. You know, we got an updated report, that hopefully 2 weeks he'll be back at the House of Correction and this will be an end to this. And then that would mean that the, June sentencing would be, I assure you that we've been working with the county attorney's office and the sheriff's department to try and get this person sentenced as quick as possible. I know that means we're just passing it off to another governmental entity, but so be it. You know,
I understand. But you want to follow up.
So the current expectation is approximately 2 weeks of
Okay, well, that's-
hospitalization,
hopefully that'll
when he's gonna
come to
be
fruition.
cleared of therapy and hopefully back to us.
So I'm spending the 36,000 a week. That comes out to be over $281 an hour. That's, I mean, that seems like a lot. I don't know what we paid the sheriff, but even on overtime, I know if they make $50 an hour, that's 75, and two of them would be $150 an hour. How do we get to $280 plus?
Somebody's smiling over here.
well, I think I'm sorry, when I put that forward, I didn't count the fact that, we had several weeks where the Massachusetts entity covered us for free. That wasn't clarified until recently. So in the end, when it's all over, we'll have an actual cost number.
But I guess my question is, forgetting that part, there are some weeks when we're spending $36,000 a week. That's $281 an hour. And even with I don't know what a deputy gets paid, but I don't think they get paid over $75, $80 an hour. So at time and a half, they're making $50 an hour. That's two of them that's $150 an hour. We're not 280.
We also pay 23% for their retirement. I think it's 23 or 20. I'm sorry. We pay 31% for their retirement. That's their current retirement charge for group 2 retirement. So we have to pay that 31% and other roll-up charges.
But I just like to see a breakdown of the $281. It seems excessive for two people, even on.
I will have a full breakdown. Obviously, the budget can't afford to continue to do this.
Right.
So when we come for some form of budget adjustment, which we're not prepared to do now, first of all, he's still in the hospital. Second of all, we're not 100% sure of full medical coverage. So I'm hoping to have everything, all the entire breakdown of everything available to you for, our next quarterly meeting.
And the cost for the first quarter is included
In the sheriff's,
in sheriff's overtime.
yes,
of,
that's correct.
It's up, that's why it's up 74%, using 3/4 of the overtime for the whole year.
That's correct.
That's where it is.
Strafford County is so lucky to have unicorns.
I'm just gonna let the sheriff respond, and because a lot of it's like.
I appreciate the question and your initial question too. Part of the reason why this is such a unique situation is because of the work that we do every time someone is admitted to the hospital out of the jail, which is conversations between my office, Superintendent Brackett's office, County Attorney's office, medical, everyone, to determine whether or not we can request and whether she can allow furloughs, or working with community corrections to use other avenues rather than our deputies sitting on them. So that is that money saving is on everyone's mind. And we did Administrator Bauer, all of it had a long meeting with Diane about how to come to those numbers. And I think that it will be helpful to everyone and all of us to be able to explain those numbers.
Yes, we'll have a whole detailed thing out. And again, my presumption is we'll have it ready for the second quarter budget, presuming he gets out
In 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks. You know, we've heard this before. I mean, and that's not any reflection on anybody. Just as he's about to be released, he develops another problem. And I assure you, our medical department's fought with Mass General. And let me give you an example of one that was successful. I'm sure that you all heard about the woman that was shot by the state trooper in Dover after a pursuit. She was taken to
Mass General.
Was it Mass General? I thought it was the other one. Brigham and Women's. She was taken to Brigham and Women's. And so we called down there because we know we're responsible for that because,
She had no insurance.
and she had no insurance. So and we were in a situation where we could be in this same boat again. So we called down and, Ben.
I made the
Ben
initial
full
call to the
credit.
surgeon and I spoke to him. I have extensive critical care experience as well as emergency experience. So I knew that I'd have a little bit of leverage with the surgeon, get her back up here if she was stable, which she was. And I would personally took the responsibility of doing the wound care and everything else that he outlined for me upon release. We were able to get her a quick turnaround and get her back to us to mitigate some of the costs. So
Even though it was a state police arrest, and state police shooting, the county still takes responsibility.
That's our
because
responsibility in the state
Conviction and sentencing.
That's the state statute.
No, we'll be changing that as well.
That would be great.
I can, Representative back here.
Isn't it like in statute that the inmate, if they are sent to a hospital, that they have to be handcuffed to the bed for like the safety of the staff at the hospital anywhere?
No, in fact, it requires a doctor's orders to have them restrained to a bed. There's a policy, and I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but I believe that there's a policy that requires that they are to be in some way cuffed or shackled. And that's based off of the sheriff's department's policy, as opposed to medical clinicians saying, put this person in restraints on the bed. In a medical setting such as that, it requires a doctor to write a doctor's order that they are to be restrained.
Right.
But also, though, we do have a medical contract with Wentworth Douglas being our local hospital. And in that does require security when necessary. And that's, obviously they feel they want to protect their staff as well as their other residents. There's not usually a roommate, so it's a private room. But as a quid pro quo, we don't pay the public rate for the hospitalization. We get a discounted rate, more like the Medicare rate as opposed to a private insurance rate, as an example. So there's a trade-off there in our hospital agreement with Wentworth Douglas.
yeah, with that contract, we can see a 17 to 24% reduction in the overall bill as a result of that contract that we hold with them.
Yeah.
I'm mixed up. We're looking at a guy that needs 2 deputies to guard him 24/7. He's able to walk around in the hospital, have his cell phone's gotta be watched so he doesn't plan to escape. And yet, he's not in good enough shape to be sentenced. I don't know. Doesn't claim.
The lawyers make that decision, and the judge makes that decision, not us. You know, you can have a situation, I think you have to have an appreciation, and this is not only true in this case, but in a ton of cases. If someone's is faced with 10 years, looking at 10 years, or more, 15 years, whatever the case may be, in most cases, the defense attorneys want them in the county's custody for as long as possible because it's frankly, a better facility. Okay? So they make attempts, whatever they can, the defense counsel does. That's one of the great things about America, okay? That the defense counsel will work to ensure that they stay in the county's hands for as long as possible versus our attempt to get them out of here as quickly as possible. And that determination, that happens all the time here. This just happens to be an outlier because of the medical costs. Other than that, the thing I just described to you has been going on here
Forever.
for centuries.
Wow.
You know, at least since 1820. I barely remember.
That you first term, Georgia.
And there's one other point, Mike, to your question earlier. If they're at Mass General, then we have to have two two deputies there, 24 hours, 7 days a week. You have to include the fact that it takes an hour and 15 minutes sometimes to drive there. So you've got two people leaving here, driving there. So part of your equation in your mathematics is going to include that 2 hour down and 2 hour back by two other people that have to be there.
And also, you know, we included, I mean.
Yeah, the roll-up cost.
The roll-up cost plus mileage.
Right, so it's not just two people there at the drop of a hat.
And that's why we begged, that's why we pleaded, that's why Ben's done everything he can to move that person back up to where without it.
And I want you guys to understand that my job is very complex because part of my job is to mitigate liability on the back end of this. We don't provide adequate medical care.
Right.
It's deliberate indifference. It's not following standard practice of care. And then it puts me and my staff at risk of losing medical licenses. I'm not willing to do that and compromise that for the care of the inmate population we serve.
The other thing is, once you get a deliberate indifference finding against you as an entity, it follows you forever and makes you, almost implies a liability on a subsequent case.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, I'm missing, anyone else like? over
Just
here?
real quick, I have a question for the attorney. So I assume that you are doing everything within your power to try to make sure that June happens, correct?
So I just got the date, it's June 3rd, and we're reaching out to defense to see if they've been able to meet with him. Another piece I didn't mention is that he has the constitutional right to be there and to speak on his own behalf. So,
But since COVID with Zoom and all of that, I mean, that's a given. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just doing everything remote, so.
That's true. It's more about the ability to actively engage with his attorney, provide information, have intelligent discussions about the ramifications of sentencing. If a defense attorney says, I haven't been able to do that, there's nothing I can do to inquire into those conversations because they're protected by attorney-client privilege, right? So we kind of have to take the defense attorney, who is an officer of the court, at their word that their client hasn't been able to adequately engage in those conversations.
Okay.
So as long as they say that to the judge is going to say, well, this person can't be sentenced then. If their attorney's alleging their constitutional rights haven't been met. But we are, because we understand that and I will say that we are frequently working with the sheriff's office and the jail when there's somebody that's been picked up on a warrant that the judges set bail at preventative detention, they're not released, but then they're at the hospital for what could be a week. We do everything in our power to get them to be released on some sort of bail where the House of Corrections will be on the.
We don't absorb the cost.
Yeah,
Which is, we work closely with them to do that.
Yeah. The balance of how dangerous this person, if there's any other conditions we can put in place, and what the time at the hospital is going to be like. We do that all the time.
Last question is about, it's a follow-up of that. So all these costs, I just want to understand, once somebody's sentenced and all that, does the county, how does this come from the state? Where does the asset forfeiture, every single penny, dime, nickel that this gentleman has come to pay back what we put out. Does that happen?
If they have any
Is that a
assets.
given? Like, is that a given?
If they, no, it's not a given, but if they have any assets, we'll go after them.
Okay.
Based on the age of this gentleman, I doubt it.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not,
he
of course,
hasn't
there's no
had-
given that he has assets. I'm saying it's a given that we go after.
No
Whatever
question.
good there be.
No
Okay.
question.
All right, just wanna make
I mean,
sure.
I'm not talking about for routine where somebody needs a ibuprofen or something.
No.
But
I'm
if
talking
it's something
about
that falls
substantial.
outside of what we can provide in the House of Correction, the answer is yes.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
final, Jim, final one?
She asked it for me.
All right, so I mean, it's a unicorn. I don't know how you plan for a unicorn. It's like, you can't put money, if it happens once every 40 years, it's not worth putting aside a contingency fund. I think there were certainly questions raised as legislators about liability for the county that if you know people on judiciary, I'd recommend you follow up on it. But ultimately, it is what it is, I guess. So I'm gonna move us on to the next rosy topic, which is the outbreak.
Well, excuse me, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking, because the next one is $221,000 for the nursing pool. So can you tell us the update on the outbreak?
Yeah, neurovirus, it's in the cover memo. Neurovirus, we got hit with neurovirus, first time since 2017. And that involved 162 or 4 cases, half of which were residents, half of which were staff. So what we needed to do, because it involved so many staff, is we needed to utilize nursing pools, which we've tried not to utilize at all because they were expensive. I mean, nurses' aides are $45 an hour. RNs are $75 or to $90 an hour, somewhere in that range. But we had to use them because we couldn't use our own staff because almost exactly half of that 160 something cases were staff and almost broke down to 50-50. So fortunately, in terms of the care of our residents, none of them went to the hospital.
Everyone's like feverishly grabbing their papers to look at this. I just want to make sure. I had this in a cover letter. So
Yeah, everybody that got the cover
paperwork-
letter with the budget.
So in the cover letter of the budget, it goes after it does the introduction, it goes over exactly what he's talking about, which is that in the first quarter, there were 164 cases of norovirus. And as much as I really want to talk about infections, the reason I brought it up is because as the administrators pointing out, not only did it hit the patients, it hit the staff. But when it hit the staff, it triggers like overtime charges, which is what this is occurring. So I just wanted, while people were shuffling with papers.
It was difficult for us to use overtime, of course, because so much of our staff was depleted.
Yeah.
So we ended up, over the course of 2 weeks that this hit the facility, we ended up using primarily nursing pool staff from a private
Per
entity.
diem.
Per diem staff is the best way to put it. And it hit everybody, it hit nurses' aides, it hit nurses, it hit, some places we don't need to replace, like when it hit people from activities or other things, we can go without. But when it hits nursing and nurses' aides and nurses, we obviously have what we call a minimum staffing, which is how we operate. And if we fall below that, then we're not providing adequate care. So we had no options. And it's not funny, but it's norovirus. There's no prophylactic. In other words, there's no preventative vaccine, and there's nothing to give anybody. The doctors want it to run its course. In other words, not give anybody anything that prevents any diarrhea, which is the more common of the symptoms that I list. They want it to run its course and run out. Which one fortunate thing about norovirus is it usually only lasts 3 to 5 days. When our employees get it, we make them stay out for 5 days because we don't want them to come back and then give it back, to residents. So it's not like the flu where we can give a prophylactic vaccine. In fact, we only had 3 cases of the flu this whole year. So we're real happy about that. And, we only had 3 cases of COVID also. So we're real happy about that. But both of those illnesses, do allow us to use preventative measures. Flu shots, COVID shots. And we believe that is the strongest reason why we didn't have any of those. Fortunately, we were able to keep all our residents in-house. We did not have to send them to the hospital. We kept them adequately hydrated by, making sure they're drinking fluids and taking in a lot of fluids. So we didn't have anybody seriously hurt, except being uncomfortable of having the norovirus for a period of time. There's the fact that, we're 2-person rooms at Riverside. Once one gets it, the other one's got it. It's highly contagious. So that's how it spread as far as it did. So about half of our residents, a little less than half of our residents, and that many staff picked up the virus. And that's not something we, anticipate.
I'm just trying to figure the accounting on this. You say in this letter that it happened during the first quarter and it cost $221,000. I look at the Riverside Rest Home budget total expenditures, 22% of the year for the first quarter, which means they're slightly under budget. So the $221,000 wasn't spent in the first quarter?
It was, but Representative Harrington, during the process of the nursing home, I was accused of not telling everybody everything that's going on in terms of the nursing home construction. I'm not doing that again. I'm telling you everything as it happens. And that doesn't translate to the fact that we need to do something about it in the future. I think the gentleman in the hospital from the House of Correction will need to make some budget adjustment. I'm not saying we need to make a budget adjustment in this. And as an example, the House Bill 2 had a 3% Medicaid cut. Now that would have cost us about $500,000 annual.
We could discuss that.
No,
I'm just want to talk about.
No,
I'm talking about, yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is if I can make that money up.
It says it was during the first quarter.
Yeah.
And we are not prepared, budgeted for this type of illness. When I look at the rest home, the highest expenditure I see is 27% having to do with clinical recruitment and infection prevention. And that's a little bit over budget, but the entire budget for the quarter is actually slightly under budget.
So you're looking for the line item of the per diem fee.
Where is the $221,000 appear?
It's in the nursing line item.
Yeah, you gotta go page 18.
That's what I'm trying to find.
Yeah, it's primarily in the 229 line.
Yes, that's the biggest because look at, you're on only
Page
3 months.
18, 3 months is 51% spent.
That's right. That's where it is.
And that's where the nursing,
That's what I was trying to find.
and that's where the nursing pools are
That's
paid out
That's
of.
the outside services.
Yes, sir.
Per diem nurse.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's where it came from.
Yes,
That
sir.
answers my question.
Got
Thank
it.
you.
Okay.
Next question.
I have a question about that unemployment insurance. Is that just, it all hits like within that first quarter?
We have first $8,000.
Okay, and then that.
Then it goes away.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so those are the 2 really bad news items. Do you have any good news?
Well, I do have a couple of items. I have some good news items. We're close to presuming all the 9 people that are in the final stages of hiring. We're almost fully staffed at the jail based on the adjustments that you all made in the budget. That the commissioners had negotiated with the union and we had requested and you had voted for. That would bring on 13 people since the budget went into place.
We have had Lieutenant Leonard Nadu, he's our training director, but he's also the individual that does the initial parts of hiring process. he's been working to try to get people to come in. Now, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but $21.92 is what everybody was paying through the door on December 29th of last year. And so what we did is we attacked it to see what it is that we could provide to the individuals. The health insurance was not as much of a component that we found in negotiations. To the new hires, to the people sitting around the table, it was very important. But to the new hires, it was not as important. We were ranked 8th out of 10 counties for Department of Corrections pay. And so what we did is we put emphasis on what we heard as feedback, either through exit interviews or from feedback that we received when we went out to actively solicit. We would talk about the environment, the way in which you could progress your career, and they'd say, "What do you get paid?" And we'd say $21.92, and they'd be like, "All right, thank you very much." And then they'd turn around and they'd walk away. So now, as a result of this, not only are we seeing an increase in applicants that are coming in, we're seeing an increase in the quality of applicants that are coming in. And that's really what we're looking for. I say to all the new hires and I say to all the schools that come through the facility, listen, if you can run 1.5 miles in 9 minutes, and if you can bench press 450 pounds, that's great. But if you can't effectively communicate, then you don't have the same amount of value. Communication is really of utmost importance inside our facility. And we're finding people that are more clear communicators, that have an understanding of what the intent of the criminal justice system actually is. When I first started, I thought that everybody made the decision to commit a crime and come into the facility and they had to deal with it. But all too often, I'm finding that people made those decisions and they should be incarcerated, but we're trying to find out why they make those decisions in the first place. And there could be some very evil people and they just made poor decisions. And I wouldn't try to deny that. But there's an awful lot of people who never had any guidance in the first place on how to make proper decisions. And that's some of the things that I want my staff to be able to recognize, to see if we can stop them from coming in over and over and over again.
Questions?
Just one quick question. I wanted to understand, staff, is this are you doing a bonus structure? Because I know that other counties are doing that in regards to the firing as well. I mean, I know you've changed the pay scale, but are you doing anything in regards with that? Like they're doing it, of course, in Rochester for the police department.
Yes.
So I didn't know if you were doing that. A lot of corrections across the state are doing the bonus, a bonus type of thing.
They are. And one of the things that we did at the county is we entertained that and we talked about it. But our bonus structure was designed to retain people over a 3-year period.
Gotcha.
What we didn't want to do is say, hey, come work with us, we'll give you $5,000. And if you stay for a year, we'll give you another $5,000. Yeah. Because after 367 days, they're going to start looking for another job. And the long-term retention is really what we're looking for. And working in corrections, I've said it before, but not a lot of people want to do it. For $21.92, having someone throw urine or feces at you, when you could maybe go do something else and get paid a comparable wage or even more so. So we need to find out ways that we can bring people in. And that's not just specific to corrections, it's to all law enforcement. And so what we did is we tried to find a way with the bonus structure that we would be able to retain people, and it progressively got more. Still less than the bonuses that are being offered by some of my colleagues. But over a 3-year period, we'd be able to keep people. The problem is that when we engage in discussions about pay, it always has to be with the union. Yeah. And whether they decide to accept it or not is something that I've tried like crazy to figure out how to get them to accept something. Mm-hmm. But if they don't accept it, then we go back to the drawing board. And so we entertain that notion, absolutely, but that was the outcome of our discussions.
I'm sure nobody wants any more questions. I got one more. So, I'm very close with a superintendent. I don't know what his title is. At a different prison and in another county. Mm-hmm. And so we've had lots of conversations about inmates that are coming in that are that have substance abuse problems. And this goes into a piece of legislation that we were talking about passing, but it hasn't gone through yet. So I don't know at all what's happening in the county here in regards with keeping inmates high through Suboxone and methadone. What are we doing with that?
So, under RSA 30B, we're required to provide medication assisted treatment to individuals that come into the facility. So we do provide medications such as Suboxone, Subutex, Naltrexone, Vivitrol. Those are all things that we provide because we're statutorily required to do so. We also recognize that rehabilitation is not just a one-track fits all. And so what we do is we have abstinence-based programs as well that people can go through. So do we provide medication-assisted treatment to individuals that are in our facility? Absolutely,
How many?
100%. I think we have 54.
Approximately 54 and another 6 on methadone.
I'm sorry, 54.
54 active on sublingual
Yep.
Suboxone
Yep.
with naltrexone, so they don't get the high.
Okay.
And then methadone from outside clinics that I've contracted with. When they come in on methadone, we have to keep them therapeutic in a dose. We have to continue that treatment.
It's not only state law.
I know, I understand.
But it's federal court case
I get it.
from the First Circuit.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it just, you came to jail and you detoxed and lives changed. And we've really gone away from that. And so this is some people that I'm talking to and that are unbelievable what they're doing with inmates that are there because there's no room for mental health and there's no place at the state hospital. There's no place for these folks. And so they're detoxing and getting the help that they need. Unfortunately, in county jails, in just regular holding facilities and stuff like that. And it's incredible what some of these officers and higher ups are doing. But there's the repeat offenders that we're talking about are always the ones that are basically just kept comfortable. And then they go out and they come back and come back and come back.
See, I think that's a misconception, if I can speak on that for a minute. My program's very rigid.
Okay.
And they go through a disciplinary board hearing. Okay, if they get found diverting or attempting to divert that medication or not complying with the aftercare recommendations, those outlined to them upon release. Within 90 days, if they're violated, they come back to us before that, they're not eligible for that methadone or Suboxone.
That's fantastic. Okay.
That's written into the contractual agreement that they signed with me and the provider. Okay. So there are mechanisms in place to curb that. In addition, I've built in a detox protocol that they can have comfort meds to kind of mitigate the need to go to the emergency room.
Correct.
Okay, and we get them through the detox process in 90 days, then they then become eligible for the program again. We don't just give it to them willy-nilly, they have to earn it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's not happening throughout
We
the
have a good
state.
program.
So,
Yeah.
that's the type of stuff that should be happening statewide. I mean, that's the type of stuff that we should be talking about. That's a huge thing. That's a shining star for Strafford County. And we should all be proud that we're doing stuff like that. So, all right. That's big.
Well, that was good news. I feel like
Well, the other part of that is drug court. We have the most active drug court in the state of Hampshire. So we're diverting those people from county jail into drug court, okay? We have more people in our drug court than all the other counties combined, okay? So, and that's just the facts. So we have a robust drug court.
How effective is that? How effective is it?
About twice the average of between non-treatment and treatment. I'd be lying to you if I told you everybody that came out of drug court never used again.
Yeah.
But I can tell you it's twice as effective as not having drug court at all. And it's certainly substantially cheaper to keep somebody out and in drug court than it is to incarcerate them.
All right, so I'm gonna pull this back to looking over the first quarter.
Yeah, I have
there's
one other piece of good news.
All right, give me
If
one piece of
anybody-
good news and then.
We have, immigration raised their rate from 100 to 150 in negotiations. So that's a piece of good news.
Yeah.
We're still working with the sheriffs, with the US Marshal, on a rate adjustment. And that rate adjustment will be a little more comprehensive, because it'll deal with transportation increases and other things. So we're working on that actively. In fact, superintendent just sent another email this morning, trying to get that resolved. Now, there's no reason for us to think that, they still have the authority to go retroactive on that. I didn't budget for it till April 1st. So we're not like in a bad situation. And the fact that the US Marshal is late, ICE started early. So ICE started February 1st as opposed to April 1st. So we're, one's offset the other so far. And of course, so that's another piece of reasonably good news.
So what about the courthouse? Did we raise the rent here?
We're under contract to raise the rent by a CPI figure, so that will have gone up.
Okay, and that will be, when does that take effect?
January 1st. So you'll actually see that increase in the budget that you passed.
Okay.
Okay, so is there anything else you said?
Oh, one other thing. Well, no, because it answers this question. It answers this question.
Okay.
There was legislation that has passed the House, I'm not sure where it is in the Senate, that forces the state to pay market rate.
Yes.
And
Is that going through?
I believe it went through the House,
Yeah.
but we'll see what happens in the Senate. I
It's
don't,
probably already been, it might already have been ITL'd.
I don't know. I've been visiting,
I'll find out.
I visited every senator on
Senate Finance.
Senate
Did
Finance.
you talk to Senator Gray about this?
Yes, we talked to Senator Gray about 5 different items that are located in the, 5 different items that were located inside the, that left the House that would have impacted the county. And
But
he
we'll keep
listened.
travel and tourism in there, though. We'll keep traveling tourism.
All right, I'm gonna move this along, just.
I'm done, I'm sorry.
Is there anything else like that, because again, I want to move this through the agenda, is there anything else on the budget thing?
Just one thing. The only thing that's certain here is uncertainty. Okay? We have no idea what the feds are gonna do. We have absolutely no idea what they're doing. Okay? We have no idea what the state's gonna do until the state budget's passed late in June. We will have a better feel about where we sit financially. Okay, so when we report to you on the second quarter of the county budget, we may have a better idea as to what impacts are taking place as a result of not only federal action, but legislative state action. So with that said, when we meet with you again, we'll have at least a better idea of what the budget impact would potentially could be long term.
Right?
This should be an easy one. On page 13, resource agencies, we've spent nothing. It's some particular.
contractual.
We have to wait till the budget passes and then we develop a contract with them. We don't just give them the money. They have to provide X service, which is in relation to what they proposed for their requested
You
amount.
expect money second quarter?
Yes, sir. And I'm sure there'll be a catch up.
I've signed the contracts already, so.
All right, thank you. That was all I had.
All right, so is there anything else, because I'm gonna move us on, so we're gonna end up with a motion to approve the first quarter budget, which I guess is that we've gone over it and we've read it, is that what the motion?
Yes,
is?
sir.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion. Motion made by Representative Lamontagne, seconded by Representative Wall. I don't think this is that controversial. I think we can do this on a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's
Nay.
unanimous.
Nay.
Oh, excuse me. Wow, that was too quick of me. Who said nay?
Nay.
Nay.
We had 2 nays.
Nay.
3 nays?
Do you have a name too?
Do I hear four?
No, I don't have a name. It's done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just the point.
11 and 3.
Yeah, okay. All right, that moves us on to item 7, which is the approval of distribution of previously approved salary schedules for union contracts and non-union agreements to transfer budgetary line items as per document entitled Strafford County 2025 line item transfers. Those are already contractually done, so it's actually non-negotiable, really.
Well, and yeah, this is what you guys approved when you approved the budget. We're just moving it to the proper line items so that as we pay it out, it'll show proper expenditures. It's no different than what you approved. It's the same amount of money. It's just transferred from one line to a whole bunch of lines.
Okay, so
I move that.
that was moved by Representative Schmidt, seconded by Representative Corrigan. Representative Bailey, you have a question?
Yes, well, I've heard this several times that you guys approved something. That's not always the case. A majority of you guys approved something, but it's not you guys.
I'll clear that up. The delegation approved.
The delegation.
I'm sorry, Representative Bailey, I misspoke. The delegation approved.
Just a fine point, but it is a point.
Semantics matter, so we'll take.
We'll correct it in the minutes.
All right. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. Again, it's non-negotiable. Do you want to do it as a roll call?
No.
Roll call, or should we just do it voice vote? I'm gonna
No,
do it
voice vote.
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Show of hands.
Can I have the nays, show of hands, please? 1, 2.
Perhaps we should be doing roll calls.
It's fine. It doesn't
So
matter.
it was,
That's all you need to know.
Five.
5
Show of
opposed.
hands, you don't have to have who the names are.
Whatever. 5 opposed. Oh. All right, so that moves us on. I added, number 8, which is this discussion of the formation of a working group to advocate for a new nursing home. I put this on here because, I mean, ironically enough, we've gotten, the county budget is already done. Our legislative work, it seems like it'll never end, but we're coming to the end of that, and we're coming to the end of the state budget, and I wanted to get us started back on the nursing home. It's kind of been sitting on the table for, at least from the delegation standpoint, for a while. And it is a complicated project, to say the least. It cannot advance without really good coordination between the delegation, the county commissioners, and also our communities. And so I want, it's not going to be possible if we just have a report come to us in January and say, hey, what do you think? Should we do the nursing home? So I think it's going to take a little bit more work than that. And so I think the onus is really upon us to work with the commissioners. And I think a working group that works through some of the more serious questions is essential. In my mind, I think, and I'm kind of goal oriented, you could probably see with that other subcommittee, I would like to see us address some of the most significant issues and come forward in January when the public hearing comes from the budget, that we have some kind of pathway forward.
Okay.
In that, and I think we started before, but there was a question of what the committee was going to do, and I don't think there's a shortage. I mean, I'll start out initially with just the site plan. Looking at the site plan, what's workable on what we own here currently. I think we've, had a lot of money has been spent already that's given us a lot of information there. We need to kind of sift through it. With that is, and of course, the landscape has already changed. We talked about Medicaid and financing and building, and a lot has changed in the last 3 years. And so my suggestion is that we form a bipartisan nursing home advocacy group. I don't want to make it too big because I'm going to make, and I hate to keep adding meetings, but I want to add meetings. I envision that we're going to meet once a month, starting in June, with an eye on having a report ready for January for when the public hearing comes for the budget. As I said, I already mentioned that things I think we need to talk about are our site plan. We need to talk about size and financing. I think we're going to need to reach out, obviously, to Sullivan County. They have a renovation going on, and get some thoughts on what's going on there, or other counties. I think it's also mentioned early on that there's a housing component that's potentially sitting on county land. The House passed the Partners in Housing project, which looked exactly at this, and that was looking at either municipal or county land that was really has the potential to add a housing component to it. The real push was that this would be in housing champion communities, and those are communities that have reached out to New Hampshire Housing. They've gone through an application process. It shows that they have a lot of things in place to make it really easier to do developments. It just so happens that our county land sits in exactly one of those, because Dover is a housing champion. So this is a real case study in it. It was initially proposed in the House that it would have $10 million that would help. That's been stripped out. I don't know what happened in the Senate, but it really is obvious that we need to take a look at that. That falls into the commissioner's purview, but I think, again, it's part of a larger project that we need to look at, which means really looking and talking with some of our county nonprofit partners. Community Action Partners is one of them. Community Partners is one of them. We had Easter seals is another one of them. Bring them in and really have an opportunity to talk about what that housing could look like on our land. So I think that is my thought process. In terms of a working group, I thought 5-4, 5 Democrats, 4 Republicans that would meet. I've already reached out to 5 Democrats that I think would be great for the committee. Myself, I'm on housing, so I think that makes sense. Representative LaMontagne is on Health and Human Services. That makes sense. Representative Wall is the chair of the Riverside Rest Home, so that makes sense. Representative LaRoche, he's from Rochester. I want Rochester representative on there. And then Representative English is representing Somersworth, Rollinsford. So I think I hit the 3 big cities and 2 smallers, which I think Representative Potenza spoke to having a better distribution of representation. I leave it to the Republicans to pick your 4. Only thing that I really ask for is we're gonna have to, it's a requirement that you're gonna have to come to these meetings. There certainly can be a Zoom option, but we're gonna have to get some work done. Representative Bailey.
This is the nursing home now?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're kind of jumping ahead. You're already assuming there will be a nursing home. And inquiries are made over the several years that this has been going on. As to, the first question was, what statute or constitutional element requires us to have a nursing home? The answer is none. We are not required to have one at all. And then the second question was, is there a particular reason why it has to be in the county seat as opposed to somewhere else? The most expensive place? No, there's nothing that requires that it be here if it was to exist at all. And are we limited to having one? Or could there be several smaller ones dotted around? And the answer was yes. You can have as many as you like or as few as you like. So you're jumping ahead to assume we're just going to pick up with 2 failed bond votes and just keep rolling. I don't necessarily think you should start there. When you talk about discussions, you're kind of eliminating all the discussions and jumping ahead to where you want to be. And that's not a discussion.
Okay, that's a really excellent points for raising. So I gotta try to hit on a couple of them, then I'll get Representative Potenza. So obviously, one of the options you would say is that it's not economically viable for the county to run a nursing home. And you would say, or that it's not, that one site is not sufficient to meet the needs of the county. So certainly that can be there. The only thing, I think, one of the commissioners said that we live in a time of uncertainty. The only certainty I know is that we actually own this land currently and we have a nursing home sitting here. If there are viable alternatives that can come out of that in our discussions, they will. But my starting point is that we likely need a new nursing home and that we actually own this property here. So I think that's a good starting point. Representative Potenza?
Yeah, I appreciate what you just said, and I also appreciate what Representative Bailey said. And I think he hears that and just thinks we're gonna start forward. But I'm hearing from you is that we're gonna all get around the table and we're gonna have some hard discussions. Because there's a lot of people that think, my gosh, could we give a voucher program to the indigent and help them in a private space? Could we take the property that we have and could we sell it? There's a lot of other things that could be discussed. And I'm not saying that building a structure is out of it or not. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but I really think that all of these options should be on the table. Economically, financially with what's in, there's a lot of unknowns that are out there, but, yeah, if it doesn't make sense for us to be in the nursing home business, then it doesn't. And that doesn't mean that we're ever gonna turn our back on these people in the community or anything like that. Like, it doesn't need to be those discussions. It really, there should be kind of a full scope approach and all the different options that we could have.
I'm gonna get one of the commissioner.
I think I have no objection to this committee. The first thing this committee has to do is spend its first meeting and maybe 2 weeks understanding the finances of how this works. Representative Bailey is right. Counties aren't required to run nursing homes. but they are required to pay for them. Now, that's a big difference.
What we were told was we are required to care for the indigent, and the fact that the state is paying half the Medicaid
That
satisfies that fully.
hang on for a minute. See, that's part of the misunderstanding. The state pays the bill, but they give the bills, the money's coming from us as a payer in the Medicaid system. So again, to my point, the first meeting has to be regarding finances and how the system actually functions, okay? So once the legislators have a true grasp of how the system functions, then you can, you have conversations about whether you should have 2 homes, 3 homes, add to the private sector, don't add to the private sector, take the public sector out of it. Those are the conversations you're gonna have after you understand how the system functions.
So
At present.
I think that, so to all of your points so far, yes, I just threw out a suggestion forming the committee and getting it started. And I think I already said that you're gonna meet once a month, and you can see that there's a lot of work to be done, and it's a complicated issue to work on. Other questions, Montaigne?
I think it's a great idea to have it. We don't want to end up where we were last time. Okay, and yes, there are many ideas we could talk about. We might look at the idea of should the county help support perhaps land a nonprofit to run an assisted living facility. That's a huge problem. I see there's all these private assisted living facilities and most people can't afford it. If we can get people in affordable assisted living, maybe we keep them out of the nursing home. Maybe we wouldn't need to build a big nursing home if we could have people living in that intermediate step. So I think we need to be open to new ideas, but the idea that we're not going to have a nursing home at some level, the private sector is never going to take care of the poorest of the poor in our country. And that is on us.
Representative Hornigan?
Yes, just put the term indigent. I mean, I guess it may appear in the law books and the regulations, but that's a somewhat misleading term. It implies that there are people who aren't like us, who maybe don't really matter that much and don't deserve anything more than the bare minimum. But that's kind of inaccurate. And in fact, I know there's at least one former member of the county delegation who is last I heard is staying in the nursing home, and she's not the only example. So any of us, could be living out our last months or years in that facility. So that's so it's probably okay to do something more than the absolute bare minimum. So I don't have a problem with doing something more than the bare minimum.
Yeah, this was a massive project. It was proposed to us, and it was kind of forced down our throats. And it kept getting forced down our throats until it couldn't get bonded. The money couldn't come up. So now we're looking to start back where we were. And yet, we were never proposed what it would cost to renovate the present nursing home. We were told it didn't pay, it wasn't good, but nobody ever really looked into it and showed us anything on that. We were proposed a 3-legged stool. And I was from day one, I was against that, because this whole plan of putting the homeless in the old nursing home, which is no good for the people in there, but all of a sudden miraculously, it's going to be great for the homeless, starting another business in Strafford County, because that's a business, it's a jobs program. And now I'm hearing about assisted housing here with a nonprofit like Easter Seals. It's got 1.1 million they make in interest. I'm sorry, do what we got to do. I'm not for big building huge jails or nursing homes to take in the private payers. You do the basics here, and this ought to be looked at. And the representative says that the privates are going to ignore people. Well, if what was said was that you give some sort of a voucher, we pay for it, well, you go to a private place, because you're talking about a $300,000 or $400,000 mortgage, which we got no mortgage now.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I think we're really just supporting the idea of forming the committee. I think everyone can have input into the committee through different people, but really right now, we're just at that point of you know.
Yeah, but the
supporting the
initial
chair.
idea was put forward to keep going where we were, and that, I like that clear.
I'm advocating for solving the problem. I didn't have the semantics correctly. I Representative Bailey.
Does this title suggest a conclusion that we might not reach? The working group to advance the new nursing home project. Maybe there is no nursing home
Okay,
project.
so
It's one of the possible
I'm gonna
outcomes.
take complete,
You're begging the question
responsibility,
logically.
So if it would make you more comfortable if I said I had a working group to investigate the potential of a nursing home or of the nursing home issue, I'm open to any kind of semantic change. But the crux of the matter, and I think Representative Southworth is correct, there is a lot of complex things sitting in this conversation that will not be solved by putting 38 people at a table that I have trouble getting together. If I get 9 people with the support of the groups around us and we meet once a month, we will be able to come forward with something in January. I do not want to go into the next fiscal budget talking about fixing the old nursing home with no alternative. So this group will put the onus on us to get some work done. And the hope is, I do not want to repeat some of the mistakes of last time. I think I really am cognizant of being incredibly transparent to the entire delegation so they all know exactly what we're talking about. And so I asked Janet to make sure that there will be minutes from every single one of our meeting that goes to everybody in the delegation. I am open to the agenda. It will go out in advance. Everybody will have a clear idea what we're talking about.
Can the public come?
I am more than happy to have the public come. If you don't have a pickleball game, you have nothing else going on, please come and watch us.
No, there's some people that are in the public that have some wonderful ideas.
Project of this magnitude is huge for the entire county. To get it to pass, having been through this with the school, requires a tremendous amount of community outreach to do it. So yes, we will do that, and yes, it is open.
And we'll Zoom every meeting too.
Yeah.
So if people can't make it out here, they can Zoom it, if they can't, or they can watch it. Yeah, or they can, and we'll also means it'll be on YouTube, but we'll have written minutes also. I learned that lesson.
No, I think it's great. I'm glad the conversation has been brought back up. I wish it was even brought back up sooner, but here we are. It's good anyway. We've had some of us and we're in a budget time, so some of us have had ridiculous amounts of meetings constantly.
Yes.
That hasn't been able to be here. So so this is good. It's good timing, and we'll get back to you with our 4, and I think we can do a great job for the people of Strafford County.
Great. I mean, my take is in terms of logistical part, because I'm going to have my boss over there. I just want to make sure that I get the 4 Republicans. I've already said the 5 Democrats. We need to schedule a meeting, so there's going to be something going out where we figure out when is an appropriate time to get everybody. But I agree. I think hopefully, I'm sorry to schedule another meeting, but I think it needs to be productive. Representative Bailey.
5 and 4 would be not unlike what we've experienced in recent years. Yeah, you could win every vote, but can you win a bond vote on a 5-4? No, you can't. So I think you need something truly bipartisan.
I'm okay. I'm okay with.
Are we saying that it's gonna die immediately before we look at anything?
Well, if you're gonna do that, don't waste my time.
No,
I don't feel like spending the next year and then losing every vote and then, okay, we'll have a bond vote.
No, my hope is honestly, I think we all understand that it doesn't work without all of us. So the hope is actually for it to be bipartisan.
Okay, so I suggest that we rename the project instead of what it is currently, to address the nursing home question.
Whatever.
So we're not saying we're going to have a new nursing home. We're not saying that we're going to advance anything. We're going to address the nursing home question, which we certainly have.
Yeah, just call it the nursing home working group. That's what it's gonna be.
I'm fine with that. If you want a motion that, Representative Smith made the motion, do I have a second? Second, Representative Wall, all those in favor? Yes. Great. All right, so I think we're started, and, anyone you pick, please follow the email chain. Number 9, is there any other business before?
I just said one last thing, sewer project's done.
Yay.
Finished yesterday. Tuesday, finished Tuesday. So we'll have budget numbers for you, but in every appearance it's within the amount you've allocated. The only thing we have left to do is fix the floor areas that were dug up, as a result of this. For those of you, it might actually make you feel better. The worst sewer break was in my office. So for those, it's what happens when you had COVID and it still haven't regained your smell. People would come in my office and say, it smells funny in here.
Oh,
So I'm training a therapy dog, which will be my 3rd therapy dog for the purposes of the nursing home. I thought every other weekend, my wife and I would come in with our rug scrubber, and I was thinking it was my dog that was creating the smell, and as it turns out, there's about this much pipe missing. So as the sewer came down from units 3 and 4, it would drop down with no pipe into made a pool in the floor and then drop down the remaining pipe. So for those of you that might gain some smile out of that, I'll offer my office as the.
But because the soil and all of that was actually there's clay and all of that, it really did, it stayed. So we're not.
Fortunately, it did.
So we have no issues with any of the.
No, it's totally done. And in fact, we not expanded, but we learned that we needed to run, Doug, jump in anytime I'm wrong, but we needed to run outside of the building and into our sewer line that surrounds the county. Because the sewer line that was put in when the jail was constructed, it starts in the back. And it goes both ways, because we didn't have the proper elevation to have it go one way all the way around. So we found that there was a 180 foot run,
210 feet.
210 foot run that we had to make to tie into the outside sewer line, but it's still within budget.
Good. Yeah, and I am gonna revisit, I know that there's some people that know and that maybe don't know, but I am gonna revisit, there is there's funds within DES. Sometimes it's reimbursement, sometimes it's you might get like in a sense of grant money. So there's funds in regards with DES for this stuff that now that we're on a new schedule or new calendar, whatever, that should be replenished. So I'm gonna bring those conversations up with our executive counselor and Senator Gray as well, and then go to DES to say, okay, so what do we need to do to put in an application to see if certain things that we have spent can get reimbursed for, or any other those types of projects which are big.
And if it'd be okay with you, Janet will email you a comprehensive report that Doug presented to the commissioners this morning.
Perfect.
Because like I said, we just finished the project on Tuesday.
And it has it all outlined there? Yep.
It has the whole outline. It has pictures, diagrams.
Wonderful.
Cover sheet. Oh, it's right there.
Perfect. All
You
right.
got it. All right,
Yeah.
Representative Howard.
So I just wanted to talk about the courthouse lease for a second. So HB 694, requiring leases of land, buildings, or space by state agencies to be at a fair market value is actually over at the governor's desk right now. So if you could please tell her to go sign that, that would be really appreciated.
Nice. So pass the sign.
Yeah.
Very good.
I wanted to back up from the committee that you were thinking of. I would like perhaps one of the people there most interested to, for a first step, just meet with the commissioner and the administrator, just to get a baseline of the kind of facts of when the bills go out, things like that. Because a law would affect every single community in New Hampshire, all the counties, that this law wouldn't just change for us. And so I really want to know the basics first. My sense with my math is the interest for loans for every community in New Hampshire that needs it is going to be way more then, or just for Strafford County, is gonna be way more than $1 million.
Sort of follow up on your thing,
So I just want to get those facts first, and I also want to make sure we have facts about changing legislation. Even though I do have the finance background, this would actually go through municipal and county government.
That's right.
And we would need a strong supporter, probably from both parties, to get it through that.
So what I propose to do just to start is, would you mind if I generated a letter to the cities and towns in Strafford County?
I'd rather you pause, because
Okay.
what I was just saying is
Don't scare the hell out.
someone from
Yes.
there
Yeah,
and someone
I
from here will talk to you first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
There are many
before-
steps before sending letters.
So-
Yeah,
I
Gonna
agree.
scare-
All
I
right,
agree.
before we leave this room, let's do that, because that's.
Does someone know right now who'd like to join
Whoever
me?
wants to be on it from the Republican side.
I'm just looking for one person for a first meeting,
Okay,
just to get the basics.
talk with Tom.
Yeah, send me an email,
All right, so that brings us.
and then we can coordinate with, I figure if just the four of us sit down for a half hour,
Yeah.
it could really just
You'll
save time and energy.
All right, so that I think takes care, any other business, yes.
Just want to go back to something we were talking about. The cost of the prisoners is up to $150. My simple question would be, does that cover all our costs?
All our costs, including depreciation of the building, and I'll send it to you. We do it every year. It's been done every year for the last 8 or 10 years. It includes the cost, because we analyze the cost for community corrections, for drug court, and compare it all to the jail. I will send you all the years that we have.
Transportation, food.
It includes everything. It even includes, like I said, depreciation of the building. So it's a true, if we were to file taxes, it's all of the information that would be included on our tax return.
All right.
We do that every year.
Thank you.
All right, with that said, I will entertain my favorite motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Moved by Representative Smith, seconded by Representative Mack. I think we could do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Anybody vote no can stay.